Good morning, everybody. It is 11 o'clock, and that means it is time for our daily lectionary readings. What do I have for you today? We've got Psalm 89, 20 to 37. We're going to spend a few days in this passage. Then we have First Chronicles 11, 15 to 19. I know we've been in Samuel for a while, talking about the story of Saul and then David. Now we're kind of bouncing in and out of Chronicles. Chronicles and Samuel both tell the story of David, in particular the story of David, in different ways. Samuel is a much more often brutally honest depiction of David, showing David warts and all, showing his negative, his flaws and his faults and the things he does wrong. Whereas Chronicles only talks about the good stuff. They don't even mention the bad stuff. For example, David and Bathsheba. If you're not familiar with that story, we're going to talk about it on the 25th, by the way. That's my sermon on the 25th. David and Bathsheba is in Samuel. Chronicles doesn't even talk about it. Just not at all. So all those kind of unsavory bits about David that as we read Samuel, we may look at that and go, ugh. In Chronicles, they just kind of either omit it or spin it a different way to make it all. Chronicles is all sunshine and rainbows when it comes to David, whereas Samuel is David is the greatest king, warts and all, the man whom God loved in spite of his flaws, which is kind of interesting to kind of look at the two. So the lectionary sometimes bounces back and forth, just so you know. And then we have Colossians. We're going to be in the letter to the church of Colossae, chapter 1, verses 15 to 23. So without further ado, let's go to our Psalm 89, 20 to 37. I have found my servant David. With my holy oil I have anointed him. My hand shall always remain with him. My arm also shall strengthen him. The enemy shall not outwit him. The wicked shall not humble him. I will crush his foes before him and strike down those who hate him. My faithfulness and steadfast love shall be with him, and in my name his horn shall be exalted. I will set his hand on the sea and his right hand on the rivers, and he shall cry to me, You are my Father, my God, the rock of my salvation. And I will make him the firstborn, the highest of the kings of the earth. Forever I will keep my steadfast love for him, and my covenant with him will stand firm. I will establish his line forever, and his throne as long as the heavens endure. If his children forsake my law and do not walk according to my ordinances, if they violate my statutes and do not keep my commandments, then I will punish their transgression with the rod and their iniquity with scourges. But I will not remove from him my steadfast love, or to be false to my faithfulness. I will not violate my covenant or alter the word that went forth from my lips. Once and for all I have sworn by my holiness, I will not lie to David. His line shall continue forever, and his throne endure before me like the sun, and it shall be established forever like the moon, an enduring witness in the skies. It's all a really great poem about God's favor on David, and we throw in a little bit about if his children stray from the ordinances, don't keep the statutes and commandments, that they'll be punished with rod and with scourges. Scourges is like a whip with, instead of having one thing, it's got multiples. And if you want to get really nasty, they had bits of glass or metal woven in to rip the skin. That was what Jesus was lashed with before the crucifixion, was a scourge. It's like a cat of nine tails. Remember, I don't know if you ever heard of those. It's the same. That's a scourge. And then you had the rods that especially the Jews would beat with rods, wooden sticks. trying to remember if it's. I noticed with scourges, I'm not sure about the rods. The Jewish kind of typical was punishment was 40 lashes was considered probably fatal because of blood loss and shock. So they would do the 40 minus 1 would be a severe punishment, but not fatal, theoretically. Paul was a few times given the 40 lashes minus 1. And he was beaten with rods a few times. He talks about that. All right, let's go to 1 Chronicles 11:15-19. 3 of the 30 chiefs went down to the rock to David at the cave of Adullam, while the army of the Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then at Bethlehem. And David said longingly, "Oh, that someone would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem that is by the gate." And then the 3 broke through the camp of the Philistines and drew water from the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate. And they brought it to David. But David would not drink of it. He poured it out to the Lord and said, "My God forbid that I should do this. Can I drink the blood of these men? For at the risk of their lives they brought it." And therefore he would not drink it. The 3 warriors did these things. David's 3, or David's 30. David had a group of famous warriors who were with him. The list of the 30 doesn't come until after he's made king, but it is believed that most, if not all of them, had been with him throughout his time, even when he was on the run from Saul. So he has the 3 who are, I had it here in a moment ago, Ishmael the Tachmonite, Eleazar son of Dodo, the Ahohite, and Shema son of Agi the Hararite. Those were the 3. And then he had the 30, although the text lists 37, 30 and 7, I think it's 30 and 7 or 30 and 9. 37. So you've got 2 different groups, and depending on what list you're looking at, there might be some changes in there. But you've got these, they're basically his mighty warriors. They're the ones who did some incredible deeds on David's behalf. Including Elhanan, who is also the son of Dodo of Bethlehem. You might want to look up Elhanan. It's kind of interesting, because in one version of the Goliath story, it says that in one part of the, I think it's Samuel, it says Elhanan slew Goliath, as opposed to David. It's just one line. Some translations had subsequently changed it to the brother of Goliath, but that's not actually in the text. It's just interesting. But Elhanan was one of the 30. So they were this core of these like super soldiers of David's, which also included the Uriah the Hittite, who we'll talk about in a couple weeks. He was one of the 30 as well. So let's go to Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 to 23. We're talking about the supremacy of Christ. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For in him all things in heaven and on earth were created, things visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or powers, all things have been created through him and for him. He himself is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he might come to have first place in everything. For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell, and through him God was pleased to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, by making peace through the blood of his cross. And you who were once estranged and hostile in minds, doing evil deeds, he is now reconciled in his fleshly body through death, so as to present you holy and blameless and irreproachable before him, provided that you continue securely established and steadfast in the faith, without shifting from the hope promised by the gospel that you heard, which has been proclaimed to every creature under heaven. I, Paul, became a servant of this gospel. And that is our daily lectionary readings for Thursday, July 15th. Hopefully I'll see you all at church Sunday morning for worship at 11 o'clock. It's a special day. It's going to be our pastor installation service where yours truly gets formally installed by as pastor of First Baptist. Randy Rasmussen, our executive minister for American Baptist Churches of the Dakotas, will be here to perform that installation service, part of the service. And then we're going to have a potluck afterwards, a lunch afterwards. So the meat will be provided. I hear rumors of pulled pork. But bring side dishes, bring desserts. We'll have a good time. All right, so I'll see you Sunday morning. Bye, guys.